melt this when I'm ocean wave.
Today on Never Legends podcast, I have George Washington basketball coach Chris Caputo, who joins me after his first year at GW, leading them to a 500 record, first time in, I believe, 7 years. Coach, great to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Julian, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So let me just give your bio. You've done a lot. I mean, you have a basketball lineage that's unbelievable. It's kind of the old school lineage, like guys when my day. But you went to Archbishop Molloy, played for Jack Curran, one of the best coaches of all time. He's like the Morgan Wooten of New York. Brian Winters, Kenny Anderson, Lou Carnesecca, Jim Larranaga, might know that guy, Kenny Smith. Played there, went to Westfield State. You were captain there, finance, econ major, double major there. Then you worked your way up. You were at George Mason. I guess you were video coordinator, director of operations. That's probably a much bigger job now with all the video stuff going on. Worked your way all the way to assistant. Then you went to Miami in 2011, worked your way up to associate head coach. Bless you. And then again, first year with George Washington was last season. Did I get most of that correct, Coach?
That's it. You just encapsulated my whole life in about 30 seconds.
Wow. Yeah, it's an awesome background. Well, let's start with GW. So as an older guy, I grew up in the 70s basketball, where Maryland had just arrived. Lefty was building what he was calling the UCLA of the East at the time. But behind Maryland, it was parity. I mean, American had Kermit Washington. They were beginning to make some noise. GW and Georgetown were on the same level. John Thompson had just gotten there. He was beginning to build his really strong program. And then George Mason, I believe, was still a Division II school in the early 70s, became Division I late 70s. And now, when you look at Washington, D.C. now, it's probably the best college basketball city in the country, either Washington or Los Angeles, I would guess. But so what do you think about building a program in Washington? What are some of the opportunities and also some of the challenges of building a basketball program in Washington?
Sure. Well, I think, being a guy from New York, I was always partial to New York growing up. And certainly New York for a long time probably held the title of one of the, if not the best basketball town in the United States. But when I came to DC in 2002, I quickly learned that there was something special about the culture of basketball in the DMV. In fact, I got here before they were even calling it the DMV. I don't know when that started, but it wasn't, no one said in 2002, oh, you're moving to the DMV, huh? Somehow it just sort of came, that phrase came about somewhere in the late 2010s or whatever, 2000s. But, I immediately realized that, the quality of high school basketball, the quality of college basketball. I always tell people that in 2006, when we made the Final Four at George Mason, GW was in the top 10 in the country all year. Georgetown makes the Final Four in 2007, the following year. Obviously, Maryland was coming off a national championship in 2002. American had been in the NCAA tournament. And so, I think the combination of great high school basketball across the DMV, even youth basketball, and how passionate people are here about, grassroots and the AAU basketball, what have you. College basketball, when it's at its best, is second to none here. And obviously having an NBA franchise as well. So I think for a number of different reasons, I love my time in Miami. Obviously, I joked at my press conference that I took an 11-year spring break in Miami. And I was, I love that town too. And I got a lot of friends there, and, was happy that when I got there, the Heat were kind of coming together with the big three and Coach Spoelstra and the work that he's done. But, and it became a little bit more of a basketball town based on, the success that Miami men's and women's basketball were having, in the Heat. But to come back here in a place where people are just so passionate about the game at every level, if you're a basketball person, it's sort of, makes you really, really, excited about the opportunities. And I think a lot of people in this area have also seen what GW can look like when they're winning. And the Smith Center is really a gem of a facility and arena that is, I think, second to none in terms of what the environment could be like, because for whatever they did, they built it right back in the early 80s, what have you. So
Yeah, it's true. When you go to George Mason, even University of Maryland, sometimes they have to really ship in noise there because when the gyms aren't
big,
filled,
they're big arenas. Yeah.
they're big, and you don't have that environment. And Smith Center is very cozy. I was going to games there in the 80s as well. What about the different flavors of campuses? Like with George Mason, you have your suburban campus. Georgetown, you have a small campus. Maryland's kind of a suburban campus as well in AU. But George Washington's more like NYU. It's on a really cool kind of a neat area of Washington D.C. Not Foggy Bottom.
Yeah, Foggy
Bottom. Yeah, Foggy Bottom. So is that an advantage, kind of a city block campus?
Yeah, I think we're the second largest landowner in the district after the federal government.
Oh, wow.
We have the best urban campus in America. I don't think there's a campus in America, inner city campus in America, that is better than ours, mostly because of our location in such a great part of town here. We can walk to, the Lincoln Memorial, we can walk to the White House. We have a metro stop. We can walk into Georgetown if we needed to as well. But I think if you like a city campus, if that's something that you're attracted to as a student, there's probably no better one in America. And, for me to have then the Smith Center right here, smack dab in the middle of campus, we have 11,000 students. Most of them live on campus or certainly within the Foggy Bottom area. I think the ability to get our students excited and bring them to the facility is, it's not a heavy lift in terms of logistics.
Yeah. Well, to get back to New York City for a minute, is basketball still a city game? Now, Archbishop Molloy is in Queens.
Yeah.
Growing up, we idolized the Rucker, the pickup games of the city. But basketball has changed dramatically over the last 50 years. With the suburbs, with the AAU, the all around. Is basketball still a city game that you grew up with?
Yeah, it's a great question. I certainly think it is a city game, and yet, I think like the American demographic, right? We have, as families start to grow up, right? You start to build a young family, you're going through it, I'm going through it, and you start to maybe leave the city and go into the suburbs. And then those kids wind up playing basketball, and they become suburban basketball players that may have been raised by urban basketball players, and I know for me, I grew up right in the five boroughs, right in Queens, and we used to play outside all the time. And when I say we, I mean, every park was filled with people playing, when it was good weather, and even sometimes when it wasn't good weather. And now, one of the things about the DMV that's, I think, probably plays into the idea of having great basketball is so many great facilities in this area. For a big city, I think that's the difference. I've talked to friends about this, about New York is more densely populated. It's an older place in a lot of ways. And so the indoor facility access in New York is not quite what the indoor facility access is here in the DMV. And obviously these fast growing suburbs of the DMV that have, probably had a little bit more land 30 years ago to build out some better indoor courts. And so, one of the things that jumps out, when, and you can appreciate this, when I talked to Glenn Farello, the great high school coach of Paul VI, when Paul VI moved from Fairfax out to Loudoun. And when he took the job about 15 years ago, I know there are a number of kids coming from the city or even from PG County that were taking, like the metro out to Fairfax and then sort of getting bused to the Paul VI campus, which is in Fairfax City. And I said, I wonder if moving way out to South Riding, does that affect it? And he says, Chris, most of the really good players in our program over the last 5 years live in Prince William County and Loudoun County and parts of Fairfax. So, I do think that has probably changed as our community as a whole has started to move, west or south or what have you.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned the great Jack Curran, and I mean, he had his career. I think it spanned over 5 or 6 decades as a coach.
50 years. Yeah.
That
1957 when he started it, or 58 when he started Molloy, to 2013 when he passed away.
Wow. So, what did you learn from him, and what was it like to play for a guy who his innovations in basketball and the players that he affected, it still reverberate into the game today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, he was the winningest basketball coach in New York State at a time when New York State really had some of the best basketball anywhere. He was the winningest baseball coach in America. He was a great baseball.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he loved baseball. He was a baseball player. I think for a lot of people that played for him, I know Coach Larranaga would say this, the effect that I think he had on his players, the way he cared about them off the court, I think the impact that he had really inspired us to get into coaching. Because, while he was a great X's and O's coach and a great coach of the fundamentals, and, I think more than that, with his humility, but also, genuine care for the people that played for him, while they were playing for him, and then certainly after, the idea of building a program, the idea of people, coming back to support, the idea of people coming back and asking him for advice and help, and, sort of having a family environment created through the basketball program, I think was very attractive to me as I thought about, what I wanted to do for a living, and the type of life that I wanted to have. And so, for us, I know for me, I wasn't certainly one of the great players that ever played there. There's so many, when you talked about some of those guys, captain of the Olympic team and NBA All-Stars, and, guys who have their jersey retired in the NBA, and national championship players and things like that. But on the other hand, I did feel like, it was important to him, and the way he treated me. That's the type of coach that I think, I wanted to be. And obviously I think Coach Larranaga would say the same thing. And my opportunity in coaching came because of Coach Curran sort of helping me get on with Coach Larranaga, and then the rest is history for me. So I owe a lot to him, and certainly to Coach Larranaga as well. But I think those guys really embodied what I think coaching should be as a profession.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you ended up in Westfield State in Western Massachusetts, I believe, a liberal arts school. I think we're one of the first co-ed public schools in the country.
Yeah.
How did you find Westfield? And
same Molloy connection. Rich Sutter, who had been assistant Molloy, had been a assistant at Colgate when Donald Foyle was there, got the job at Westfield, recruited me to go there. And, I didn't really know much, but I had a great experience, when I got there. Played for a guy who was a really good coach. He's still there. He's had a lot of success there over time now, and also just built some great relationship with some personal friends that I'm close with to this day. And you're not in New York anymore, but you're sort of in the New England basketball world of prep school basketball, and the Hall of Fame is right there near Springfield. And so when I'm in college, I'm sort of working some camps and also going to the prep school basketball games and things like that. I'm learning about what New England basketball was and was becoming, and so was fortunate enough, I think, to have that experience as well. It's a league of coaches like Tom Thibodeau played at Salem State, and Tommy Moore, who's an assistant at UConn, was at Worcester State, and so number of different guys. Who probably not the Salem State made the Final Four my freshman year, but I would say a lot of those guys were built for coaching, not playing in that league. Yeah.
Well, Coach, you ended up at George Mason, my hometown, Fairfax, and I believe when you first got there, my buddy Bill Courtney, I believe, was still there.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
You guys are getting ready to make an historic run to the Final Four. Talk a little bit about the grind. It was a 15, 16-year grind to become a head coach. And talk a little bit about, how you're able to to come out and?
Yeah, I never felt like it was a grind. I always felt like I was really lucky to have a job in Division I, being a Division III guy, and getting to George Mason in 2002. Obviously, working for Coach Larranaga was just an honor for me. But then also, to be on a staff with Bill Courtney, who obviously was a Northern Virginia legend and a guy who knew the DMV very well and got to learn about that. Mike Gillian, who later became the head coach of Longwood, who is a great guy as well. Eric Conkle, who's the head coach of Tulsa now, came along. We came in together, and so learned a lot from all those guys as well as some others that worked there throughout the years. And I love being in the Northern Virginia area. I loved getting exposure to what the DMV was. Back then, the rules were a little bit different. I could go to high school games, within 30 miles. So I saw a lot of games, in the area. I always joked that, my job was very basketball centric, video, underclassmen recruiting. Coach Larranaga never trusted me with the important stuff like the camp, which was his baby. He was making some money off camp. So he certainly didn't trust me, about that. So for me, I just, I loved every second of being there. I had opportunities to leave for more money throughout the years. And I just, I was happy. I love being a part of what we were building there. Obviously, go to the, we went to the Final Four and went back to tournament in 08. But then people forget in 11, we went back and won a game again and beat Villanova in the first round. And that team, in a year where the CAA got 3 teams in, our team was 16-2 in the league and won 15 straight league games. So it was probably the best year in the history of the CAA. And that team may have been the best team in the history of the CAA at that moment, to that point. So very proud of the work we did. And then obviously got an opportunity to go to Miami. But I learned a lot about basketball, about the DMV, about the culture here. And it was something that stayed with me in terms of my attraction to this area.
Yeah. Well, you talked about the Colonial, and the Atlantic 10 has taken some of the Colonial colleges. I believe Richmond's in the Atlantic 10 now. Isn't that right,
Yes.
Coach?
Yeah,
And,
they were not. They were in the. I was never in the Colonial with them, but VCU, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So is the Atlantic 10? It's pretty comparable to what the Colonial was when you were with George Mason, or is it a little more, probably more highly rated?
Deeper, right? The Colonial was really, really good, but probably a bit top heavy.
Yeah.
With VCU, Old Dominion, George Mason, Hofstra, Drexel at times, Wilmington at times, Northeastern at times, William and Mary at times. Whereas I think the depth of the 15 teams in this league make it really, really competitive every night. I mean, there's a big commitment by every team in this league to try to win.
Yeah. Well, Coach, your offensive style is positionless, which is very common in basketball. That seems to be where the game is going. You can see that in the Miami team last year. They got to the final game. All the players can handle the ball. They can all shoot. They can certainly pass the ball.
Yeah.
Have you seen that evolved in Larranaga as a coach on all these years?
Well, he's been very coach has been very flexible. He's obviously a brilliant basketball mind, and I think he's adaptive. He's flexible. I always joke with my staff, when I would think of something, he would go back and be like, "Yeah, we did that in 1977." Like the game, while it evolves, a lot of it comes back to things that happened years and years ago. And prior to the 2022 season, we looked at our team, and Coach had asked Bill Courtney and I to start to look at some ideas about offense in terms of playing 5 out. With the team we had, Sam Wardenberg was the 5-man. He could shoot and he could put the ball on the ground. Not a big physical guy. Jordan Miller, obviously a Northern Virginia guy, played him at the 4, and then had 3 really, really good guards. And so, we played, almost exclusively in a 5 out sort of alignment, like a lot of NBA teams, like you see Denver play with Jokic at the top of the key, and your 5-man's out on the perimeter a lot. And it's not that you don't get him down there, but you have to be pretty good about how you play that way, because 5 out, while it's it is positionless and can be free flowing, it doesn't necessarily allow for the spacing for drives perfectly, right? So you have to be able to manipulate it from 5 out to some 4 out situation so that you can drive the ball into some gaps and things like that. So we I don't know if we were early adopters of it in college, but certainly we went all in on it. And you're starting to see more and more people. We did it last year a little bit here, and there's a misnomer that you need shooting at every position to do it, because last year we only had 3 guys who really shot and made threes, and yet we were able to play it some and have some success with it.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about your last year's team, and I mean, it must have been a huge a decision for you to leave a very stacked Miami team, and but the opportunity to run a Division I program, of course, is a great dream. But when I went through your schedule from last year, the thing that got me, first of all, is you won 4 overtime games, and that was huge, because I think it had to be great for you to finish 500 in your first year there.
Yeah, we were 10-8 in the league, and
10-8 in the league,
yeah. So it was the first time, GW's from 91 to 2016 went to 17 postseasons in 25 years, including NIT championships, Sweet 16s, top 10 finishes, consecutive 3 straight NCAA tournaments, like 2 different times. And so, we come here, and then for one reason or another, after 6 years of not having a winning record in the league, it was important to try to, have a 500 record and have a winning record in the league. And we're able to do both in year 1. And so, hopefully we can build upon that. I mean, we still have a lot of work to do, but I think it legitimized a little bit of our messaging, when we can have some success within the league and, even out of conference at times.
Yeah. Did you know exactly what kind of head coach you wanted to be after being an assistant, after paying your dues? Did you have strong opinions about the type of coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone would say who becomes a head coach probably has strong opinions about things. But for me, the one thing I did really know is I wanted to be myself as best I could. I want to learn, I want to get better like everyone else. I think that's really important. But you also have to understand that, because I work for Coach Larranaga, who's obviously a Hall of Fame coach and just a master of this stuff, if I tried to be him every day, I think I'd come off disingenuous, So while a lot of the things that we do are the things that we did, at George Mason in Miami, and the way I see the game and the way I see coaching and how to treat your players is very similar to Coach Larranaga. I try not to spend too much time acting like him in every way, because I think it wouldn't be me. And so I know I wanted to try to be genuine. I wanted to try to be the best version of myself and work towards that every day. And while the big picture philosophy of how things are done is, almost exactly what we did at George Mason in Miami, I had to be able to do it in a way that came off like I was being me.
Yeah, exactly. Is it an adjustment learning how to coach other coaches, to lead other coaches, and to attract other coaches? That I would think that'd be one of the biggest adjustments to being a head coach.
Yeah, and I think we got a little bit of hands-on training at Miami with that, because Coach Larranaga was so inclusive in terms of decision making, and not that we were making those decisions by committee, but that he would let us inside his thinking, how he viewed things and how he made decisions. And then, being the associate head coach and have an opportunity to, work with graduate assistants and work with some younger assistants and some support staff people and, trying to help guide them, I think gave me an opportunity to practice, what I would have to do here as the head coach.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you're getting ready to start your second season. James Bishop, the leading scorer in the Atlantic 10, is back. Had a great year last year. I think Maximus Edwards was the rookie of the year.
Yes.
You really had 5 performers that had tremendous seasons in your first year there. What are you looking for the 2023-24 Revolutionaries?
Yeah, well, obviously I think, and I've told James this, he's got to go from an all-league player to a winning player in the league, right? And those guys are going to have to elevate themselves to get to a place where we haven't been in 7 years, in terms of being a team that's competing to be at the very top. We finished 6th, which was a great finish since we were picked 12th. we'd like to be a team that's competing towards the top of the league and competing, for the postseason, while also building the infrastructure of the program, while also building our fan base, building, a roster that is going to have some continuity and sustainability over time. I think we've been able to do that with some of the young players within the program, even those that have transferred from other schools in already, but they're in the younger classes. And so, it's that fine line of, we're trying to win now. We think we've got, a couple of the better players in the league. And so we should be thinking about winning right away, but then also building out the infrastructure and the culture of a program that can, have success in this league over time. And that's the only really way I know how to operate, having been a, Mason 9 of Coach Larranaga's 14 years, and then 11 of his 12 years or 13 years now at Miami. So, we look at things in long horizons in terms of like how we improve in every area, how we compete in every area, and how we build something that, hopefully people look back in time and say, man, that thing has been now consistently pretty good for a long time. And it can be done at GW because it's been done in the past.
Absolutely. How's the reception been? You've recruited as a member of the George Mason staff and the Miami staff. What do recruits and coaches say when you're representing George Washington? Have you been pleased with the reception that you've been getting?
Yeah. Those guys are. There's so many of the people in this area that I've, knew when I was 22 years old and have known for 20 years. And it's one of the reasons why I came back, because of how highly I think of so many people in this area: grassroots coaches, trainers, high school coaches. Just, for me, just a wonderful environment of people. I think, while there's always rivalries in this area, for some reason, for me, I just think at times this group of basketball people in this community sort of rise above some petty rivalries to sort of represent the DMV in a way that is just exemplary.
Yeah, we used to have huge coaching rivalries, especially at the college level, and some at the high school level as well. But you're right; it seems to be more collegial this generation of coaching, and maybe folks are just enjoying it. Look, Coach, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I have.
William, we need to get you to a game, man. I know you're out in Loudon now, but come on, you can come downtown on a Saturday.
Absolutely. I go to a lot of Gibraltar's games at AU, but we'll definitely make some GW games. I used to go
easy. That's an easy one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I used to play a lot of basketball with Mike Lonigan, back in the day. So I went to a few of his games, and he had some success at GW as well.
Oh, he did for sure.
Yeah. So, all right, Chris. Again, I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me.
Appreciate it, brother.
I will. I'll see you at a game this winter.
Yeah, we got to get you out.
Yeah, sure will. Thanks, Coach.